Standing in my own home, I watched the unthinkable. My wife, tangled in our bed with another man. Our bed, the place where we built trust, whispered promises, and, apparently, staged the greatest lie of my life. I didn't scream. I didn't break. I just stood there, watching. And when her eyes met mine, I saw it. That flicker of horror. She knew. She was caught. And her world was about to burn. "Don't stop on my account," I said, voice smooth as glass, laced with a hint of amusement. "I'm genuinely curious how long it takes you to fake it." She scrambled up, clutching the sheets to her chest like modesty still mattered. I can explain," she stammered. But we both knew that was pointless. What explanation could possibly undo what I had just witnessed? What magic words could rewind time and make me unsee the way her hands had roamed over him the way they used to roam over me? The guy finally had the good sense to move, though his attempt at covering himself with one of my shirts only made him look even more pathetic. "Man, look, I didn't know." I raised a hand, cutting him off mid-sentence. "Save it. You knew." I gestured toward the pile of discarded clothes on the floor, the wedding photo that still sat on my nightstand, the life we had built together, one that he had happily desecrated. "But don't worry. I'm not going to touch you. You're not worth the effort." His shoulders sagged in visible relief, the fool actually thinking he was off the hook. My wife, though, she wasn't nearly as naive. She knew me. She knew what was coming. But the thing is, she had no idea just how deep I was about to cut. I turned to leave, ignoring her desperate pleas, the crocodile tears already spilling down her cheeks. The apologies, the begging, the frantic reaching for excuses that would never hold weight. I walked out of that room with one thought crystal clear in my mind. I would not let this end with me as the man who got cheated on. No, I was going to rewrite the narrative. She had destroyed what we had. Fine. I'd destroy what she had left. And it started with her sister. Because if my wife had taught me anything, it was that betrayal was only painful when it was personal. And there was nothing more personal than turning the one person she trusted most against her. I pulled out my phone as I stepped outside, the cool evening air biting at my skin. One text was all it took. "Hey, you free tonight? I think we need to talk." Her sister replied within seconds. Hook, line, and sinker. If you had asked me 6 months ago, I would have told you I had it all. A stable job, a beautiful home, and a wife who, for all intents and purposes, seemed like the missing half of my soul. We had built a life together that, from the outside, looked like something straight out of a lifestyle magazine. Weekend brunches at our favorite spot, inside jokes no one else understood, and the quiet comfort of knowing someone was always there at the end of the day. It wasn't just love. It was home. Mornings were always the same. I'd wake up to the scent of coffee drifting from the kitchen, the sound of her humming as she moved about, preparing for the day. She wasn't a morning person, not really, but she had this way of making it look effortless. Hair still tousled from sleep, wrapped in one of my old shirts, moving like she belonged in some dreamy, slow-motion montage. I'd lean against the doorway, watching her, a stupid grin on my face because even after all these years, I still couldn't believe she was mine. "Stop staring and come have coffee," she'd say, not even turning around. I'd chuckle, walking up behind her, wrapping my arms around her waist, pressing a lazy kiss to her neck. "Can't help it. You look too good in my shirt." She'd swat at my arm playfully, rolling her eyes, but I'd feel her smile. That was the routine, small moments like these, mundane but ours. We'd sit at the kitchen table, sip coffee, scroll through our phones in comfortable silence before the world demanded our attention. And as I'd leave for work, she'd always kiss me goodbye at the door. "Have a good day," she'd say, lingering just a second longer. "You too, love." I believed in those moments. I believed in us. Evenings were just as predictable. I'd come home to the smell of something cooking, a warm light spilling from the kitchen. She had a habit of playing music while she cooked, soft, indie stuff that made everything feel right. I'd step in, loosen my tie, and she'd greet me with a smile, a glass of wine already waiting on the counter. "Dinner's almost ready," she'd say. I'd lean against the counter, watching her move, and think to myself, how did I get this lucky? We had our little traditions. Friday nights were for takeout and bad movies. Saturdays, We'd go for morning runs together, even though she always complained about the cold. Sundays, we'd sleep in, wrapped up in each other, pretending the rest of the world didn't exist. It was good. Easy. Or at least, that's what I thought. Looking back, I see the cracks now. The little things that should have meant something, the signs I ignored because I didn't want to believe them. Like the way her phone was suddenly always face down. How she used to leave it anywhere, carelessly, and now it never left her side. Or the late nights at work, even though she had never been the kind to stay overtime. Big project, she'd say with a sigh, kissing my cheek. I'll make it up to you this weekend. Or how she started wearing perfume even when she was just going out to grab groceries. The first time I noticed, I pushed it aside. Paranoia, I told myself. She was my wife. The woman who kissed me goodnight every single day, who knew my coffee order by heart, who still stole bites from my plate even though she swore she wasn't hungry. But once the thought planted itself in my mind, it grew roots. I started noticing more. The distant looks. The way she laughed a little too brightly at texts she never let me see. The subtle shift in how she touched me, still affectionate, but distracted, like her mind was somewhere else. Still, I didn't let myself believe it. Not fully. Because when someone is your home, the last thing you want to believe is that they're already packing their bags, ready to walk out the door. And so, I kept playing the part. The loving husband. The man who brought home flowers just because. Who still left little notes for her to find in the morning. Who wrapped his arms around her at night, not realizing she had already started slipping away. Until the day I saw it with my own eyes. And in that moment, everything I had believed in, every smile, every kiss, every whispered promise, turned to ash. She had burned our life to the ground. Now it was my turn to light the match. It started with something small. Something so insignificant that, on its own, it wouldn't have meant anything. But when you live with someone long enough, you learn their patterns, their rhythms, the way they move through the world. And when that rhythm changes, even by just a fraction, you feel it. Like a song you've heard 1,000 times suddenly missing a single note. The melody is still there, but something is off. For me, that first off note was a text message. We were sitting on the couch, half watching a show, my arm draped lazily over the backrest. She was curled up with her legs tucked under her, absently scrolling through her phone, just like she always did. Nothing unusual. Nothing out of the ordinary. Until her screen lit up with a notification, and I caught just a glimpse of it before she tilted the phone away. Had a great time today, winking face. Just 6 words. No name attached, just a number. And a winking emoji. I felt a flicker of something. Not quite suspicion, but something close. I waited, watching out of the corner of my eye, expecting her to react normally. Maybe chuckle and show me, the way she always did when a friend sent something funny. Maybe roll her eyes and complain about some coworker being annoying. But instead, she did something she had never done before. She turned off her phone. Face down. The move was quick. Too quick. A reflex, like a child caught doing something they weren't supposed to. And then nothing. She didn't glance at me. Didn't acknowledge the message. Didn't say a word. I didn't either. Not yet. Instead, I let the silence stretch, watching her body language. The slight tension in her shoulders. The way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous habit she only had when she was lying. I knew that about her. I knew everything about her. But I also knew that one message wasn't proof of anything. It could have been innocent. Could have been a joke from a friend. Could have been a million things. And yet, I felt that first crack. I decided to let it go. For now. The second off note came a few days later. She was getting ready to go out. Nothing unusual, just a casual girls' night with her sister. She stood in front of the mirror, applying lipstick with an almost nervous precision, like she wanted it to be perfect. She had dressed up more than usual, nothing extreme, just enough that I noticed. A little extra perfume. A little more effort in her hair. Again, not enough to be obvious. But enough. You look great, I said, watching her through the mirror. She smiled. Thanks, babe. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Where are you guys going again? She hesitated, just a second too long. Just that wine bar downtown. You know, the one with the live music. I nodded, pretending to believe her. Sounds nice. Say hi to your sister for me. She turned, grabbing her purse. Will do. Don't wait up, okay? And then she was gone. I waited exactly 3 minutes before pulling out my phone. Her sister had been posting all day. Pictures, videos, selfies, but nothing about going out that night. I scrolled through her stories, my stomach tightening as the seconds passed. Not a single mention of my wife. And then, just to be sure, I sent a text. Hey, hope you guys have fun tonight. Where did you end up going? A minute later, her sister responded. Fun? I'm in bed with a migraine. What are you talking about? The crack widened. I stared at the message for a long time, my heartbeat slow and steady. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I wasn't even surprised. Just aware. She had lied to me. And the worst part? She hadn't even bothered to make it a good lie. I could have called her right then. Could have confronted her, demanded an explanation. But I didn't. Because if she was lying to me, then it meant one thing. She thought I was stupid. And if that was the case, I wasn't going to prove her wrong just yet. I was going to let her believe it. Let her think she was getting away with it. Because that's the thing about betrayal. It's only satisfying if the person never sees the knife coming. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling while she slept beside me. Her breath was slow, steady, peaceful, like she hadn't just spent the evening somewhere else, doing something she couldn't tell me about. I listened to it, the soft rhythm of her deception, and I realized something. She thought she had won. She thought I had swallowed her lie without question, that I was still the same trusting fool who kissed her goodbye at the door every morning. But she didn't know me as well as she thought. Because the moment she lied, the moment she planted that seed of doubt in my mind, she had set something in motion that she wouldn't be able to stop. The next morning, I didn't say a word about the night before. I kissed her as usual, wished her a good day, and watched as she smiled. Oblivious, comfortable, secure in the belief that her lie had gone undetected. Good. Let her feel safe. Let her think she's winning. I started small, subtle, observing instead of reacting. The first thing I checked was her phone. Not physically, I knew better than that. She had changed her passcode. It used to be our anniversary. Now, when I casually tried the old numbers while she was in the shower, the screen just flashed red. Interesting. A new password wasn't just a precaution. It was a wall, a barrier, a silent confession that there was something inside she didn't want me to see. Then, there were the calls. She had always been an open book before, her phone left on the couch, the kitchen counter, anywhere. But now, it was always with her. And not just that, she started answering calls in another room. Short conversations. Low voice. The kind of calls where the person on the other end doesn't want to be heard. One evening, as we sat on the couch, she got one of those calls. The phone barely vibrated before she snatched it up, standing quickly. It's work, she muttered, already walking away. I followed her, not enough to make it obvious, just enough to hear. Her voice dropped to a whisper. No, not right now. I said I can't. Yeah, tomorrow. The moment she hung up, she walked back in like nothing had happened. I didn't look up from the TV. Everything okay? I asked casually. She hesitated, just a fraction of a second. Yeah, just a stupid client. She was getting sloppy. That was the thing about liars. They always thought they were smarter than the people they were lying to. But the truth? The truth is like water. It always finds a way out. I needed more. A lie here, a sketchy phone call, there wasn't enough. I needed something concrete. So, I started tracking. Not in the obvious way. I wasn't some amateur checking her location from a shared app or following her around like some jealous fool. No, I knew exactly how to play this. I let her give me the information I needed. I started asking simple questions. Casual. Light. Where are you going? What time will you be back? Who's going with you? Each time, she answered too smoothly. Too rehearsed. One evening, she told me she was meeting her friend Lisa for dinner. We might grab drinks after, she added, barely looking up. Oh yeah. I leaned against the counter, stirring my coffee. Tell her I said hi. She smiled. Of course. 30 minutes later, while she was still getting ready, I sent Lisa a quick text. Hey, tell my wife not to keep you out too late. She's been exhausted lately. A minute passed. Then another. Then, wait, what? I haven't seen her in weeks. I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening. Got you. I took a slow breath, forcing my face to stay neutral as I heard her footsteps behind me. I'm heading out, she said, leaning in for a quick kiss. I returned it, looking her right in the eyes. Have fun. The second the door closed behind her, I moved. I grabbed my keys, took a different car, the older one, the one she wouldn't recognize, and drove. I didn't need to follow her directly. I already had a suspicion, and I was right. Her girls' night was 20 minutes in the opposite direction of Lisa's place. Instead, she pulled into a quiet side street, parked, and got out. My grip on the wheel tightened as I watched her walk, confident, unhurried, like she had done this 100 times before. And then he appeared, tall, smirking, waiting for her on the sidewalk. She walked right into his arms. And just like that, whatever part of me had still been holding on to hope died. I didn't get out. Didn't confront them. No, that wasn't the plan. That would be letting her off too easy. Instead, I pulled out my phone and took a picture. Because now, I didn't just have suspicion. I had proof. And soon, she'd have nothing. There's a moment when suspicion turns into certainty. When the last shred of doubt dies and all that's left is the cold, hard truth staring you in the face. No more what-ifs. No more second-guessing. Just reality, sharp and unrelenting. I had been circling the truth for weeks, gathering pieces, watching the cracks spread. But nothing prepared me for the moment I saw it with my own eyes. It was late. Too late for a girl's night. Too late for any excuse she could possibly come up with. I sat in my car, parked a safe distance away, watching through the windshield as she betrayed me in real time. She had no idea I was there. She thought she was safe, hidden in the shadows of a quiet side street. But there she was, laughing, leaning into him, fingers trailing along his arm with the same touch that used to belong to me. And then, as if to drive the final nail into the coffin, she kissed him. Not hesitant. Not guilty. Comfortable. Familiar. Like this wasn't the first time. Like this was just another night in a long string of nights where she had played me for a fool. Something inside me snapped, not in anger, not in grief, but in clarity. This was it. The end of whatever illusion I had been living under. The woman I had loved, the life we had built, the years of trust and devotion, it had all been a lie. She had burned it to the ground, and now she was standing in the ashes, smiling, oblivious to the fact that I was watching her self-destruct. I didn't need to follow them. I already knew where they were going. I already knew what was coming next. And I had seen enough. I forced myself to breathe, to calm the fire in my chest. Rage was useless. Rage was impulsive. And I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of seeing me lose control. No, I was going to handle this my way. I lifted my phone, snapped the photos I needed, and drove away. By the time I got home, I felt nothing. No pain. No heartbreak. Just a cold, calculated resolve. She thought she was in control. She thought she had the upper hand. But what she didn't realize, what she never saw coming, was that she had just lost everything. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the picture on my phone, my mind already working, already strategizing. She had no idea what was coming for her. And when I was done, she wouldn't even know who she was anymore. I sat in the dark, the glow of my phone screen illuminating the evidence of her betrayal. Every pixel of that photo was a reminder of what she had done, of the lies she had spun so effortlessly. But I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just a quiet, calculated clarity. She had played her game well. I give her that. But the mistake every cheater makes is thinking they're smarter than the person they're betraying. Thinking they're in control. Thinking they've already won. What she didn't know, what she could never have predicted, was that she had just given me the perfect opportunity to destroy her. I didn't want revenge that was loud or messy. That was for weak men, men who let their emotions rule them. No, my revenge would be clean, surgical, something she wouldn't even see coming until it was too late. And it wouldn't be about just exposing her affair. That was too simple, too direct. She had built her lies carefully, so I would dismantle them just as carefully. And I knew exactly where to start. Her sister. That was the weak spot. The one person in her life she had always sought approval from. The one she had spent years trying to impress. They were close, but not close enough for honesty. I knew things about her sister that she didn't, like the fact that she had always envied my wife. I had seen the way she looked at me when she thought no one was watching, the way she lingered in conversations just a little too long. There was an undercurrent there, something my wife had always been too self-absorbed to notice. And now, I would use it. I didn't need to seduce her. That would happen naturally. I just needed to plant the right seeds. Make myself available. Make myself seem broken, but not desperate. Just vulnerable enough for her to lean in. The way my wife had leaned into another man. And once she did, Once she made the first move, I would make sure my wife found out in the most devastating way possible. But that was just the beginning. I knew my wife. I knew what she valued, what she feared, and the one thing she feared more than anything? Being irrelevant. She thrived on attention, on admiration, on the idea that people wanted to be her, wanted to be around her. It was why she curated her image so meticulously, social media, friendships, even at work. Everything was about perception, about looking like she had the perfect life. So, I would erase that illusion piece by piece. I started with small things, quiet things, things she wouldn't notice until it was too late. I changed passwords to streaming accounts, unsubscribed her from her favorite services, let her miss a few important emails by tweaking her spam filters. Then, I moved to the real damage. She had been planning a major work event for months, something that could push her toward a promotion. I knew all the details. Every vendor, every reservation, every schedule she had meticulously put together. And with just a few emails, ones that seemed to come from her account but weren't, I canceled everything. When she found out, I watched her spiral. The frantic phone calls, the panicked texts, the confusion, the self-doubt. For the first time, she wasn't in control, and she had no idea why. Then, the final blow. I let her believe she had gotten away with it for a little longer. I acted the same. Kind, loving, unaware. But one night, I left my phone unlocked on purpose, just within her reach. And on the screen, a single message to her sister. I can't keep pretending. She broke me. But being around you, it feels right. She saw it. I made sure of that. And the second I saw her face pale, the second I saw her connect the dots, I knew. Checkmate. Her betrayal had cost her everything. Her job, her sister, her entire sense of self. And the best part? She still didn't even know how deep the knife had been buried. I had been planning for weeks, and now, everything was in place. The pieces of the puzzle were scattered just enough to make it look like coincidence, but they fit together perfectly when viewed from the right angle. She still thought she was ahead, still had that smug, untouchable air about her, but she was wrong. The trap had already been set, and now, it was only a matter of time before I sprung it. I began by positioning her sister exactly where I needed her to be. It wasn't difficult. I knew exactly what to say, what not to say, how to make it seem like I was simply confiding in her, a man betrayed, unsure of what to do next. I made sure to lean into the vulnerabilities I knew she could exploit, the sadness in my eyes, the way I spoke about my wife, the carefully crafted image of a man who was on the edge but too proud to admit it. I played it perfectly. Her sister had always been a little too curious about me, a little too eager for any bit of attention I'd throw her way. But that's what made it perfect. It was subtle, gradual, and it would slip past her defenses before she even realized she was vulnerable. I wasn't trying to make her fall in love with me. I wasn't trying to seduce her. That was too messy, too risky. I needed her to see me as someone broken, someone she could help, someone she could feel sorry for. And once I had that, once I had her softened up, I could make the real move. The night I had planned arrived, and I could feel the tension in the air. My wife was out again, some work event, some dinner with clients. Things that always came up when I asked too many questions. It didn't matter anymore. I had already secured what I needed. I watched her leave, dressed up, confident, still oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Her sister came over under the guise of checking in on me. The moment she walked through the door, I made sure to give her exactly what she wanted, my attention, my vulnerability. I acted as if I had no idea what was going on behind the scenes. I was lost in my own grief, in my own pain, and I needed someone to confide in, to lean on. "Is everything okay?" she asked, sitting beside me on the couch. Her eyes were filled with concern, and I could see the tension in her body as she braced herself for what I was about to say. I looked up at her, a little broken, a little defeated. "I don't know anymore. I can't keep pretending that everything's fine. I thought I knew her. I thought I was enough." She reached out, touched my arm lightly. "You don't have to keep this in, you know. If you need someone to talk to." I didn't give her a chance to finish. I knew what I needed to do. I needed her to fall. "I don't know what to do," I said, voice shaky. "But I know I can't keep living like this. She's been so distant. I know she's with someone else." I leaned in, pretending to be vulnerable, but every word that came out of my mouth was a carefully planted seed. I thought she was the one, you know? But I guess I was wrong. I let the silence settle, giving her room to feel that small, tiny shred of guilt. I could see her reaction in her eyes. She wasn't just concerned anymore. She was curious. I knew the next step would be critical. I wasn't going to wait for her to make the first move. I was going to make it. And I needed to do it in a way that would ensure there would be no turning back. I stood up, pacing slightly, acting like I couldn't control the rush of emotions. I don't know what to do. I'm lost. I'm so lost. I turned to face her fully, my gaze intense, but not threatening. Vulnerable, but strong enough to keep her hooked. I can't keep this inside anymore. And maybe you could help me. Her sister's breath caught, and she looked up at me, her expression changing. I saw the conflict in her eyes. I had pushed her just enough, made her feel needed, and now she was in. I'm here for you, she whispered. Whatever you need. And that was the moment I had been waiting for. I had to act quickly, but not recklessly. I needed her to be invested in the story I had carefully created. I moved closer, close enough that I could feel her breath on my face. I didn't touch her, didn't make a move that would seem forced. Instead, I leaned in just enough for her to think it was her decision. You don't have to help me, I said softly, my voice low. But I think I need you. And just like that, she reached out to touch my face, her fingers grazing my jawline in that way that said everything I needed to know. She wasn't thinking anymore. She wasn't worrying about what was right or wrong. She was vulnerable. And I had her. But that was just the beginning. The trap had been set. Now, I had to make sure it was all going to fall into place. I made sure to send the right message to my wife. She'd be home soon, and I needed her to see everything. The last thing I did was turn on the cameras I had installed months ago, making sure that the entire conversation, the entire moment, was captured. When she walked in through the door and saw her sister's hand on my chest, her expression would be priceless. She wouldn't have a chance to deny it. There would be no escape. And then, I would watch her break, just as she had broken me. The sound of the front door unlocking echoed through the house, a quiet but decisive click that sent a ripple of tension through the air. I didn't turn. I didn't move. I didn't need to. I already knew exactly what was about to happen. The weight of the moment pressed down, thick and suffocating, as I stood still, waiting. Then, there it was. A sharp inhale. A sudden, frozen second where time seemed to stop. She had walked in, and she had seen everything. Her sister's hand was still on my chest, her fingers lightly gripping the fabric of my shirt. The closeness between us was undeniable. A scene so damning that no excuse, no carefully crafted lie, could twist it into something innocent. For a moment, no one spoke. The air felt charged, like the seconds before a thunderstorm. And then she finally found her voice, small, broken, desperate. What is this? I turned slowly, locking eyes with her, and for the first time, I saw fear. Not anger. Not guilt. Fear. Because she knew. She knew she had just walked into something she couldn't control, couldn't manipulate, couldn't talk her way out of. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just tilted my head slightly, as if I were genuinely curious. I should be asking you that. Her face paled. Her gaze darted from me to her sister, then back to me, searching for something, a way out, an escape, anything. No, this isn't what it looks like, she stammered, stepping forward, reaching out as if she could physically pull me back into whatever illusion she had been living in. This is a mistake. A mistake. I repeated, my voice calm, even. Like the ones you made when you were sneaking off? Lying? Betraying me? Her breath caught in her throat. Her hands trembled as she tried to form words, but there was nothing left to say. She started, but I didn't let her finish. I pulled my phone from my pocket, unlocked the screen, and turned it toward her. The color drained from her face as she saw herself. The photos. The videos. The texts. Every late-night lie. Every excuse. Every stolen moment she thought was hidden. I already knew, I said, my voice steady. I've known for weeks. She staggered back, her lips parting in stunned silence, as if the floor had been ripped out from under her. You knew. I nodded. I watched you lie to my face every day. I listened to you make excuses, watched you pretend that everything was fine. And I let you. Because I wanted this moment. I wanted you to feel what it's like to have the ground disappear beneath your feet. To realize that you are the one who has lost everything. Tears welled in her eyes. Not because she was sorry. No, this wasn't regret. This was panic. This was the realization that she was powerless. Please, she whispered, stepping forward. But I held up a hand, stopping her in her tracks. No, I said simply. You don't get to beg. You don't get to explain. You don't get to rewrite this. I let the weight of my words settle in, watching as she cracked, watching as everything she thought she controlled slipped through her fingers. Her sister was silent beside me, still processing what had just unfolded. She had no idea she had been part of something much bigger than herself, that she had been a pawn in something far beyond her understanding. But she wasn't my target. She was just a means to an end. My wife took another step, her voice breaking. I was stupid. I messed up. But we can fix this, we can. I let out a quiet chuckle, shaking my head. Fix this. I repeated, as if the words themselves were absurd. No, there's nothing left to fix. Her eyes darted to my hand, to my phone, and I saw the next wave of panic hit her. She wasn't just afraid of losing me. She was afraid of what came next. Who have you shown? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I stared at her, letting the silence crush her. That's the best part, I said finally. You don't know. Her breath hitched. You don't know who else has seen it. You don't know how far it spread. You don't know who's talking about you right now, who's watching, who's waiting for you to walk into work tomorrow, or for your phone to ring. I let the words hang, let the sheer weight of her uncertainty settle in. You don't know anything. Just like I didn't know when you were lying to my face. Her face crumpled. She understood now. She wasn't in control anymore. I was. I won't fight you on the divorce, she blurted suddenly, desperation bleeding into her voice. I won't ask for anything. I'll leave. I'll walk away. You will, I said, cutting her off. But not because I asked. Because you have no other choice. Her lips parted, as if she wanted to argue, but she couldn't. She knew. I turned, walking toward the door. She started to move after me, but I paused just before stepping out and said one final thing. You threw everything away for a man who didn't even bother to fight for you, I said, my voice steady. Let that sink in. And with that, I walked out, leaving her standing in the ruins of her own destruction. The aftermath was exactly as I had planned. There was no screaming, no desperate attempts to win me back, no dramatic showdown where she tried to justify what she had done. Because there was nothing left to say. She knew it. I knew it. And the world she had built for herself. The perfect wife, the admired professional, the woman everyone envied, had collapsed in the blink of an eye. The moment I walked away, I had already won. The rest? That was just watching her lose everything. It started with the silence. The slow, creeping realization that the people she had once surrounded herself with, the friends who had always admired her, the colleagues who had respected her, the family who had supported her, were gone. The first to go was her social circle. It wasn't just that they were disgusted by what she had done. No, it was worse than that. They weren't angry. They were embarrassed. The way I had exposed her, the way I had orchestrated her downfall so flawlessly, made her radioactive. No one wanted to be associated with that kind of humiliation. Her best friend, once the person she ran to with every piece of gossip, every petty drama, didn't even bother to return her calls. The same women who used to invite her out, who used to praise her for having the perfect marriage, suddenly had nothing to say to her. She wasn't just cheated on wife material. She was the cheater, and worse, the fool who got caught so spectacularly that no one could look at her without seeing the wreckage. Then came her family. Her mother, the woman she had always sought approval from, the one she had lived to impress, was ashamed of her. And not quietly, either. I heard from mutual acquaintances that their conversations were short, cold, distant. Her mother refused to defend her. Her father was worse. He had always seen me as a second son, always respected me, admired me. When he found out what she had done, he didn't even bother to hear her excuses. He called me. Not her. Me. And all he said was, "I'm sorry you had to go through this." That was it. No defense. No excuses. Just disappointment. Her sister? That was the cruelest cut of all. Because she didn't just turn her back on her. She replaced her. After what happened, her sister and I kept in touch, but not in the way my wife had probably feared. There was no romance, no revenge-fueled affair. But there was loyalty. A slow, subtle shift where her sister, once her biggest supporter, chose me instead. We became friends. And that was enough. Because nothing destroyed my wife more than knowing that the one person she had always thought would stand by her no matter what had finally seen her for what she truly was. Her career wasn't spared either. The job she had prided herself on, the position she had sacrificed our marriage for? Gone. Not immediately. No, the downfall was slower, more painful. It started with the whispers at work, the side glances, the awkward silences in meetings. Because people talk. And while I hadn't sent those photos to her colleagues, someone else did. Maybe it was one of her friends. Maybe it was someone at that dinner. It didn't matter. What mattered was that she couldn't escape it. The professional, polished image she had worked so hard to maintain? Destroyed. The promotion she had been counting on? Vanished. The respect of her peers? Non-existent. And eventually, when the weight of her own disgrace became too much, she did what every coward does when they realize they've lost. She quit. And me? I thrived. Because I hadn't just walked away. I had leveled up. I moved on, not bitter, not broken, but stronger than ever. I got into the best shape of my life, threw myself into work, traveled to places she had always dreamed of visiting, except now, she could only watch from the sidelines. And the final, poetic justice? I didn't just find someone new. I found someone better. She saw it. I made sure of that. She saw the pictures, the life I had built without her. And she knew. She knew that in the end, she had lost everything. And me? I had never felt more alive. I saw her again. Not by accident. Life wasn't that kind to her anymore. No, she sought me out. Months had passed, and by then, I had already left everything about her behind. My home was different. My life was different. And most importantly, I was different. But she was exactly the same, except now, she looked like a ghost of the person she used to be. I was sitting at a cafe, enjoying my morning coffee, when I noticed her. She stood outside for a while, hesitant, like she was debating whether or not to come in. But in the end, she did, because she had nothing else left to lose. She looked rough. Her once perfect posture was slouched, her hair, always meticulously styled, was now thrown up carelessly, and her eyes, the ones that used to sparkle with arrogance, were dull. The weight of her own downfall had settled onto her shoulders, and for the first time, she looked small. She didn't sit. She just stood in front of me, shifting awkwardly, biting her lip like she didn't know how to begin. "Hey," she finally said, voice uncertain, stripped of its former confidence. I took a sip of my coffee, watching her carefully. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I felt nothing. She swallowed hard. I wanted to talk. I raised an eyebrow. Talk? She nodded quickly. Yeah, a nervous chuckle escaped her, like she was trying to make this less pathetic than it actually was. I don't know. I guess I wanted to see you. See how you were doing. I set my cup down, lacing my fingers together. You mean, you wanted to see if I was still suffering? Her lips parted, eyes wide. What? No. I shook my head, cutting her off. I know why you're here. You thought maybe, just maybe, after all this time, there was a chance to undo what you did. I let the words settle, watching as she wilted under their weight. But there isn't. She exhaled shakily, looking away for a second before her eyes met mine again. This was her rock bottom. I miss you, she admitted quietly. I leaned back, taking in the absolute irony of it all. She missed me. The same man she had so easily discarded, the one she had walked all over without a second thought. And now? Now that she had nothing, I was suddenly worth missing. I smiled. Cold. Amused. Detached. I know, I said simply. And that was it. I picked up my coffee, turned my attention away from her, and she stood there for a few more seconds, waiting for something that would never come. A chance. A glimmer of hope. But when she realized there was nothing left, she nodded weakly and walked away, disappearing into a crowd of people who no longer knew her name. That was the last time I saw her. And you know what? I never looked back. Now tell me, if you were in my position, what would you have done?